Good afternoon. I'm Liz Purnell, an Education and Training Specialist with the Institute of Child Nutrition, and I would like to welcome you to the February Team Up Thursdays webinar on Teaming Up for Heart Healthy School Meals. The Institute of Child Nutrition, in conjunction with its Applied Research Division, has collaborated with USDA to develop Team Up for School Nutrition Success. Team Up is a unique learning experience designed to enhance the operation of school nutrition programs. It provides tailored technical assistance to programs that want to maintain a healthy environment and increase student meal participation. Team Up began as a pilot workshop back in 2014, and as a follow-up to that event, a monthly webinar series was launched. The Team Up Thursdays webinars serve as a platform to further enhance partnerships and to provide an opportunity for all school nutrition professionals to discuss issues and provide solutions and best practices used in districts in key areas. The ICN has created a website for all materials and resources specifically related to Team Up. You can find the information at www.theicn.org/teamup. Thank you for joining today's webinar on Heart Healthy School Meals, where we will hear from two school nutrition directors and how they prepare healthy and delicious school meals in their districts. You'll also learn about heart-healthy recipes and menu planning resources that are available from the American Heart Association and USDA's Team Nutrition. I'd just like to take a brief moment to introduce our panelists today. Deborah Eisenbarth, a nutritionist with the School Nutrition Program at USDA Food and Nutrition Service, will start us off. Next, we will hear from Bridget Matthews, the School Nutrition Director for Elbert County Schools in Georgia. Cindy Canerick Culver will present next. She is the Director of School Nutrition for Marietta City Schools, also in Georgia. And Dr. Catherine Champagne, who is a member of the American Heart Association Nutrition Committee and also a professor at Pennington Biomedical Research Center, will wrap us up. I'll close us out with a few brief announcements. During today's webinar, all attendees are muted. There will be time for questions following each speaker's presentation. If you have a question, please type it in the question box on your screen. So now we'll get started, and Deborah, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deborah Eisenbarth, and I'm a nutritionist with the Nutrition and Technical Assistance Branch within the Child Nutrition Programs at USDA Food and Nutrition Service. Today, I'll provide you with an overview of menu planning resources available to schools, as well as provide some tips to assist with healthy menu planning. I'll start by highlighting our standardized recipes and then delve into best practice strategies and conclude with an update on some of our exciting new resources. We have been busy redeveloping some USDA recipes and creating new regional and ethnic recipes for use in schools, which can be found at the website at the bottom of the screen. In total, 200 new recipes have been modernized and standardized to ensure consistent yields and credited to include the vegetable subgroups. These recipes feature whole grain dishes such as rice pilaf, baking powder biscuits, and Tuscan grilled cheese sandwich, main dishes such as taco salad, Salisbury steak, and chicken or turkey noodles, and even ethnic flavors in vegetable dishes such as Mexicali corn, Chinese vegetables, and orange glazed carrots. These recipes provide a ready-to-go resource for school nutrition professionals looking for delicious, nutrient-rich dishes that will make it easy to meet meal pattern requirements and satisfy hungry kids. This slide shows the information available for each delicious standardized recipe. Our USDA standardized recipes are offered in 6, 25 to 50, and 50 to 100 serving quantities and include ingredient lists and measurements, cooking directions, and nutrient analysis. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, additional information is also available, such as crediting information for school meal programs and the Child and Adult Care Feeding Program for those schools that serve pre-K meals under the CACFP meal patterns. Also included are food safety critical control point information and a marketing guide to help program operators purchase the correct amount of fresh foods to make the recipe. In addition, you can also access our standardized recipes from the USDA What's Cooking website. Here's a screenshot of the What's Cooking homepage. You can search for delicious, kid-friendly recipes for school meals or even at home. Find recipes in both English and Spanish. The recipes come in a household size that yields 6 servings, and large quantity recipes for childcare in schools in quantities of 25, 50, and 100 servings per recipe. Please note the web address for the What's Cooking website at the bottom of the screen. As I mentioned, the large quantity recipes have been standardized to provide crediting information for the meal pattern requirements and include a nutrient analysis. There are also videos showing how to make some of our recipes, like chickpea pasta or eagle pizza. Also, you will find our recipes for healthy kids cookbooks, which yields range from 6 servings to 100 servings. You can view these cookbooks on our Teen Nutrition website, and that web address is also noted at the bottom of the screen. Now I'm going to highlight some best practice strategies for healthy menu planning. The first best practice strategy is to use herbs and spices. Many schools are getting creative in incorporating flavor stations where students can add flavor to their food in innovative ways that appeal to their tastes. The second best practice strategy is to explore new recipes, such as those available on the What's Cooking website. Also, utilizing fresh fruits and vegetables that add vibrant color and texture to meals, and incorporating different cooking techniques, such as braising, stir-frying, and roasting, which are great ways to enhance flavors. And also to include taste tests when trying out new recipes. A recipe can be tested by providing the prepared food on the service line before putting it on the menu to see how students respond. Here's a picture of a bright, colorful, and flavorful school meal that includes local, fresh asparagus and leafy greens procured through the USDA Farm to School program. And if you look closely, you'll even see fresh chopped herbs on the breadstick. For strategy number 3, we encourage schools to access many healthy options through USDA Foods. USDA Foods offers a variety of options to help schools prepare healthy meals. Their unseasoned grilled chicken strips and minimally seasoned pulled pork are quite popular with schools, who can use them as a base to add their own flavors for tacos or sandwiches or other entree dishes. You can see the foods available list for school year 2018-2019 at the web link below. The last best practice strategy is to stay in contact with food vendors. Schools can require that the vendor provide them specific nutrition information, such as sodium content, or a list of lower sodium options and other similar products to compare. The Farm to School program and DoD Fresh program are other options for obtaining fresh produce. These items are not processed and as a result are typically lower in sodium than similar alternatives. I'm now going to highlight the menu planner for school meals, which is currently being updated. Once completed, it will be available on the Teen Nutrition website, and it will include 7 chapters, which are shown here. They're basic topics based on food-based menu planning, record keeping, and marketing. This resource will be able to assist program operators in planning healthy meals that are compliant with the meal pattern requirements and are also appealing to schools. Or to students, excuse me. Stay tuned for the release date of this resource. I also want to provide an update on 2 new USDA technical assistance resources for program operators. Many of you are likely already familiar with the Food Buying Guide, which is a technical resource that serves as the essential tool for food yield information for all child nutrition programs governed by USDA. It is used by program operators to obtain information for determining the required quantities of food to purchase for meals and determine the contribution each food makes towards the meal pattern requirements. In July of 2017, the Food Buying Guide was brought into the digital era with the release of the interactive Food Buying Guide web-based tool. Users can log in as a guest or as a registered user, However, we encourage all users to register. Registered users have access to key components of the interactive tool, such as creating and saving your favorite food list for future reference, and you can also be able to access this list on the mobile app, which I will also talk about shortly. Registered users also have access to additional features, such as the recipe analysis workbook. Users can access the interactive food buying guide tool from the Team Nutrition homepage. And at the request of FNS stakeholders, USDA has streamlined the process to access food yield information and enhance the functionalities of the food buying guide for child nutrition programs, which was originally a print resource and brought it into the technology era. In July 2017, the Food Buying Guide was brought into the digital era with the release of the Interactive Food Buying Guide web-based tool. The Food Buying Guide interactive tool includes features such as the ability to search by food groups and further narrow the search by food categories, the capability to do a side-by-side comparison of foods within a food category, such as diced canned carrots versus diced fresh carrots, create a favorite foods list, and users can log in as a guest or, as I said, as a registered user. However, we encourage everyone to register. And registered users have access to key components of the interactive tool, such as saving your favorite foods list for future reference. And users can access the interactive food buying guide, as I said, from the Team Nutrition homepage, which is shown at the bottom of this slide. Certain registered users, to include program operators, have access to an additional feature of the tool, the Recipe Analysis Workbook, which is also known as the RAW. The RAW helps program operators determine the meal pattern contribution for their recipes. You can now easily search for credible ingredients, calculate the meal pattern contribution, and print a contribution statement. Here is a screenshot from the RAW indicating the meal pattern contribution for a recipe based on the information entered by the user. Please note that the meal pattern contribution statement is also provided and it is circled in yellow at the bottom of the slide. To complement the interactive food buying guide web-based tool, we just released last month the Food Buying Guide mobile app. In order to enhance and increase user accessibility on the go, USDA has taken it up a notch with the Food Buying Guide mobile app. This mobile app brings many of the features of the Food Buying Guide web-based interactive tool on the go for use with smart devices. Features of the Food Buying Guide app include search and navigation, comparison features for yield information, and the ability for users to create a favorite foods list. The app is currently available on the Apple App Store, and by March 5th, USDA will release the mobile app on the Google Play Store for users with Android devices. If you have not already done so, we encourage you to sign up your school to be a Team Nutrition school. Team Nutrition is an initiative of the USDA Food and Nutrition Service to support the child nutrition programs through training and technical assistance for food service, nutrition education for children and their caregivers, and the school and community support for healthy eating and physical activity. By signing up to be a Team Nutrition school, you will gain access to all the available resources that I've highlighted today, as well as be notified when exciting new resources are released. I now have a few minutes to take some questions. And the first one, are the old USDA recipes still available, or were they all replaced by the new ones? So the answer to that would be the previous USDA recipes have been replaced by the new and updated USDA standardized recipes. And is the Food Buying Guide still in print, or is it just online and mobile now? The answer is the Food Buying Guide content is currently available online, and a downloadable version should be available this spring. And here's one last question. Looks like, are the recipes for Healthy Kids cookbooks available in print? And the answer to that, yes, the cookbooks can be ordered through the Team Nutrition website using the resource order form. And it looks like that's about it for questions. Let me go ahead. This concludes my portion of the webinar. So thank you so much for your time today. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Bridget.
Bridget, we're having some trouble hearing you. All right, everyone, we're going to move on with Cindy. Bridget's having some difficulties with her microphone. We're going to move to the next presenter. Bridget, we'll come back to you at the end.
All right, I am. Hi, this is Cindy Canary-Culver, and let me do this first. Got ahead of myself. All right, hi, this is Cindy Canary-Culver, and I'm talking with you from Marietta City Schools, which is the metro area of Atlanta, Georgia. We're about 20 miles north of the city downtown, and we are a district that has 11 schools. We have one high school, two middle schools. One of those is a sixth grade academy, which is only sixth graders there. And then we have 8 elementary schools. All of our schools, K through 12 for breakfast, are Provision 2. And we have 5 elementary schools that are also Provision 2 for lunch as well. And we're currently at 56% free and reduced, which has been dropping for the past 7 years that I've been there. And we serve approximately 9,000 students each. Well, we don't serve, we have an enrollment of about 9,000 students in our district. All right, so there are 3 things that I'd like to talk to you about, and the first is going to be about the methods that we use. We are the Marietta Blue Devils, so we refer to everything as our Blue Devils. The second is our staff training, because that's where it really matters. And most importantly is, what is it that our students want? All right, so with our Blue Devil methods, what we wanted to make sure that our staff knew is that we needed to be creative in order to make the healthiest meals and most tasty meals as possible. The creativity also had to match into going back into some of the basics. So as you can see here, there's lots of fresh ingredients. We really wanted our students to know where food is coming from, be able to recognize whole and fresh foods. So we very often put out for display as much fresh fruit and or vegetables on the serving line so that our students can really appreciate where this food is coming from. And in addition, as you see, here's a few extra pictures of some other fresh ingredients that we've used in the past. One of the things that we wanted to focus on with our staff when we were doing our training is being in a more positive way. You know, when we look at the regulations for our meal patterns and we talk about sodium reduction and reducing the total amount of fat and but increasing fiber and so forth, a lot of times our staff thinks that our program can be thought and talked about in a more negative way because we're always talking about things that we cannot serve. So we really wanted to change the conversation with our staff and get them excited about what we were going to be doing and what we can serve, and really enhance all the different options that we have available on our menu. So we truly focus on things that we can add, and we really do not talk about things that we have to take away. In the center, the picture that you're seeing, this is our culinary manager. And even though a lot of times we focus on, you know, the reduction of sodium, for instance, at lunch specifically, we know that it goes across the board as well. So we have added a new recipe for our breakfast parfaits, the yogurt parfaits. So we were doing a taste test with our students with different toppings to see what excites them. The bottom right is a trail mix and lots of different cereal options, and then canned fruit options as well for toppings. Right. And then one of the other things that, you know, going back to the basics is instead of just putting food out on the line, we really wanted to have experiences with our students. So we do monthly taste tests. We go from school to school, but at one school in particular for the year, we do, as you see on the right, our Georgia Grown Test Kitchen. So every single month, we provide a new recipe, and this recipe actually is a Georgia Grown agricultural product, either a fruit and or a vegetable, that we develop a new recipe, let all students in the cafeteria try that recipe, and also rate the recipe. And what's really fun about this is all of this culminates into a week-long promotion that we do in the spring that is called the Georgia Grown Feed My School for a Week. So for a whole entire week, Monday through Friday, we develop a menu both at breakfast and at lunch where every single food item served is a Georgia Grown item. And what's fun about it is it's been, you know, kid tested and kid approved because they're the ones that are telling us throughout the school year which of these recipes that they were interested in. So that gets them excited about what is going to be on that menu. So moving forward to training, because, you know, your staff is one of those key elements in making anything successful within your program. So we know that for them to succeed, they need to understand what we're asking them to do, and also, you know, they need to know how to do what we're asking them to do. So we've done a couple of opportunities for our managers with Georgia Organics, which is a nonprofit here in Georgia, and they have come in and done nice fills, because as we add more fresh food, it actually does increase the number of times our staff are using knives, and they need to be safe with them and understand how to use them properly, and in order to produce the recipes that we're asking them to do so. And what I really wanted to focus on is, of course, our students, because without them, we're not going to get anywhere. And we want to make sure we understand what it is that our students want. Our students are customers, and we treat all of our cafeterias as actual restaurants so that the managers have more accountability, but also more pride in what they do. And so what you see here is a plethora of terms. And just to, you know, there's more than 15 of these. And looking on the board, you'll see, you know, words like spicy and jerk and Asian and blitz and Alfredo and Parmesan, all these delicious flavors. These actually came off of the menu when I was looking through to see what have we added, instead of thinking that what do we have to get away from, but what have we actually added to the menu. And we have more than 15 new recipes that we have added just in this past school year, since the beginning of the school. And this has really excited our students to be able to have, you know, different menu items that they can try. And of course, you know, doing those taste tests helps make these more successful for the students. And next, here again are just a few pictures. We really focus on trying to increase the amount of fresh and quote-unquote real food that we're serving our students so that there is no mystery as to what it is that you're getting. It's things that they're familiar with. You know, as you see in the middle, it's set up just like many of our competing sub locations that our students go to after school hours. So they become familiar with what that system is like when they come and order a fresh sub from us. On the left-hand side, all of our fresh salads are made daily. And again, it adds a lot of different flavors, you know, making sure that it's labeled properly so that students know quickly what it is that they're being offered. And then on the right, just having fun with what you're doing gets students excited about picking up a banana. And one of the things that's really important to us as well is nutrition education, because it's our job. You know, I'm a dietitian. You see in the picture of the lady in the green, she is my assistant director. She's a dietitian as well. And we're not just here to feed students, but we're really here to educate our students and in essence, educate the families on what is healthy eating and what are proper portions and how can school nutrition, both breakfast and lunch, help families develop those healthy eating habits at home as well. So trying to get not only within the kitchen and in the class, but also in the classroom, and then we ourselves in as many district opportunities as possible. So for an example, annually we do a water station, a flavored water station at the District 5K. And that's just become something that people expect us to be at. They're excited to see what new flavors that we're able to introduce to them, from watermelon water to lime with mint and so forth. So that is a fun way to interact with our students. And then of course we are very heavy on our social media, and you'll have our tag at the end. But this was one of our most successful marketing promotions that we did. We took just our typical lunches, put them on really pretty plates, put some really nice pictures, and plastered them all over our social media to really show our students, but even more importantly, our parents, that we do serve, again, real food, fresh food, and it tastes delicious as well. And unfortunately, we're still combating how can we make our food look just this good, but on a 5-compartment tray. That's the tough part that I'm still trying to figure out. And just wanted to give kudos to our staff. One of the things here in Georgia that we have available within our state is what's called the Golden Radish Award, and it's a collaborative award provided by the Department of Ag, also the School Nutrition State Department, Georgia Organic, and it really helps us focus on increasing the amount of specifically Georgia-grown products, but more fresh fruits and vegetables, and gets us more excited about developing those new recipes and new flavors for our students. Here you'll see my contact information, as well as how you can follow us, be friends with us, and just check ourselves out on what we're doing with social media. For all Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, you can follow us with MCS Nutrition. And of course, you can reach out to me if you have any concerns or questions that you would like. But I am going to open it up to questions. And thank you again for your time. All right, so one of the questions that I see here is, how would you recommend doing the types of trainings that you do with limited funding? And one of the things I think that I pride myself in is when we all in school nutrition do not have a lot of funding. And so I seek out very cost-effective training opportunities, and as the one that you saw with Georgia Organic, they actually brought in a chef, brought all the food, we only provided the location and the people. So, you know, getting some connections and collaborations with nonprofits that would be available to help you with those. All right, I'm going to backtrack. Somebody would like to see my contact information, so I'm going to put that up there while you guys get to ask me a few more questions. And this is a very good question. With the strategies that you're employing, are you seeing an increase in participation? And I'm going to be very honest. In the 7 years that I've been within my district, we have gone from 69% free and reduced down to 56% free and reduced, which 56% is still a high number, but it definitely isn't as high as 69%. So our goal has been in the past 2 to 3 years specifically, maybe not necessarily to increase participation, because we know that we're now having to have more influence on students and families who can pay for meals. So we have been fortunate to be able to maintain and retain the participation rates that we have, but we do a lot of work. And when we have big promotions, we do recognize an increase in participation. So the good thing is the extra effort does pay off in the long run. So every little bit of promotion and new ideas and new recipes, it may not ultimately always increase it, but it does make an impact in the long run. So with that, I think I'm just out of time. So I'm going to introduce to you Catherine, and she's going to take over to her portion. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Let me introduce myself. My name is Catherine Champagne, as has already been mentioned. I work at the Pennington Biomedical Research Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I am the liaison between the American Heart Association and the Institute for Child Nutrition. So we're so pleased to be talking with you today. The American Heart Association has had a long and wonderful relationship with the Institute of Child Nutrition and has participated in many team-up trainings and webinars. Today we're going to talk about, why does sodium reduction matter to Americans? Why does sodium reduction matter to kids? What are the sources of sodium for kids? And I'm going to talk about the targets 1, 2, and 3, which will stimulate some conversation, but also strategies to get to the targets. So it begs the question, why does sodium reduction matter to Americans? Well, in addition to heart health, sodium also impacts bone, brain, stomach, and kidney health. And there's higher blood pressure in adults, but we're seeing some high blood pressure in children as well. You'll notice this infographic about how small changes, especially replacing sodium-filled ingredients with fruits and vegetables, can make a big difference. And these are infographics that you can download from the American Heart Association. So I encourage you to do that. So I've been involved in many studies here at the Pennington Center. The DASH diet is one that has gained a lot of press. The Gen Salt feeding study is also a study that is one of 2 trials that really demonstrated that blood pressure lowering effects of sodium reduction in people without clinically defined hypertension may actually help. The effect of sodium is greater in older individuals versus younger participants. And you know, although this is not shown in this graph here, what we also see is that if you look at a typical diet and you reduce sodium, you reduce blood pressure. If you look at the DASH diet is a healthier diet. In fact, the U.S. News and World Report actually claims it to be the healthiest diet in the United States. And you can see that you can, even with this good DASH diet that lowered blood pressure, reducing sodium is even more helpful. So, you know, 1/3 of adults have hypertension, another third have prehypertension, and people with and without hypertension have actually benefited from the lowering of sodium. The impact of sodium reduction is greater in people with hypertension, obviously, but really everyone benefits. So why does sodium reduction matter for kids? Well, 9 out of 10, science really supports the link between less sodium intake and healthier lives, even in children and teens. For example, kids who eat a high sodium diet are about 35% more likely to have elevated blood pressure than kids who eat lower sodium diets. And the rate of high blood pressure is increasing in American children, and that is really rather alarming. This is a wonderful infographic that shows myths and facts about sodium for kids, and I suggest that you go to the American Heart Association's website and download this, and maybe even consider posting it in the cafeteria. So where do we get our sodium? About 90%, 9 out of 10 children really eat too much sodium. But we know that that can change. About 91% of sodium kids eat does not come from the salt shaker. In fact, it comes from processed foods, restaurants, and school cafeteria food. That's why the job that you as school nutrition professionals are making such an impact. It is really a good thing to do, and it will pay off in the future. On this particular infographic, the Salty 6 for Kids, the American Heart Association is not telling people to really avoid these foods. Instead, we are recommending that they make smarter choices within these food categories, especially given that sodium content varies widely within the same types of foods. As part of the 2010 Health Hunger-Free Act for Hunger-Free Kids Act, participating programs need to meet the updated nutrition standards to receive their extra 6-cent reimbursement per meal. So currently, more than 99% of schools are meeting the updated standards, and that includes Target 1 sodium. A number of schools around the country have already begun work towards Target 2, and some actually are already meeting that goal. As you may know, though, USDA just closed a new rule which would delay and perhaps eventually rescind Targets 2 and 3. But that doesn't mean you need to stop your efforts. It means that you continue to work on lowering sodium to more appropriate, healthier levels for your students. It's the right thing to do, and programs that have successfully reduced sodium and continue to work on it use tactics such as training staff to analyze sodium content in their menus, educating students and staff on sodium, nutrition, and menu changes. They work with local and regional companies to find alternative products with less sodium. Sometimes things like spice bars, salad bars, recipe reformulation, as we've heard in the previous talk, and taste testing and previews. These things help to preview and permit and help children become part of the change. And USDA Foods also has good options. So many in industry really have done their due diligence to provide lower sodium product options for both school and out of school, helping level the playing field, and you reduce your sodium in your programs. So you're not alone. There's a lot of help out there, and I have had some challenges with them as well, but good karma. So the original sodium targets, the original timeline, this is a chart that shows the original sodium reduction levels, which should serve as a good frame of reference. And industry has more and more products available every day, which is great, since even at Target 2, lunch alone, as you'll notice, still contains just shy of half of the daily recommended levels of sodium. And when you combine the sodium levels for breakfast in Target 2, that means kids are getting approximately 75% of their daily amount of sodium from just those 2 meals. So really, it's important. But sometimes simple switches can make all the difference. Take, for instance, lunch from Target 1 to Target 2. Actually, as you can see, that's a reduction of about 320 milligrams per meal, and it's about the same as a pickle spear or switching out tater tots and ranch to baby carrots and ranch. So I like this particular slide very much because it shows that simple swaps can make big changes. If you look at the sodium levels in similar products, they can vary significantly. By making smart choices, we really can cut down on how much sodium we're eating. This is illustrated especially well in this slide by choosing a bread. You can see there's differences in the bread of like 90 milligrams of sodium. Condiments, the meat and cheese can make a big difference, as you can see here, and the meat, the turkey. So we can reduce what we're eating by just making simple changes. And a recent analysis of NHANES data shows that about 20% of the sodium that we're eating actually comes from sandwiches. So this is a prime category for choosing lower sodium ingredients. Here is, there's been some modeling that shows the impact of sodium reduction. This work is happening outside of the school food that is contributing to the effort to reduce sodium. Aramark, a food service company, began their Healthy for Life 20 by 20 initiative, in which part of the company is working with the American Heart Association on menu commitments to reduce calories, saturated fat, and sodium levels by 20% and increase the consumption of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains by 20%. So this is another target, another way that we can actually look at reducing sodium. And here are some resources on sodium. There are a number of resources for the produced by the American Heart Association, infographics, as you can see, both in multiple languages, articles, and other resources about healthy eating and wellness. And I would be happy to take any questions that you might have. This is the end of my presentation. So I'm looking to see if there are some questions. So I do have a question on why does it matter to focus on sodium and potassium with kids? Well, the two actually go hand in hand. So potassium is, it's really a combination of, if we increase potassium, we are generally providing a stronger adherence to the DASH diet. That tells you also that you can you can look at the impact of fruits and vegetables. If they're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, they're likely getting a lot of potassium, and that helps to better adhere to the DASH diet. I had another question about where on the website can you download the posters. Actually, all you have to do is go to the American Heart Association, and that website will have links to publications, posters, and potential downloads as well. I've asked to speak about the new study on high blood pressure and learning in children, and actually I'm not really familiar with that study, but I'm gonna get on the stick and look at it to make sure that I'm updated on that. But you know, certainly high blood pressure is a problem that affects multiple areas of the cardiovascular system, and in fact, just since it's affecting circulation, that would include the brain as well. So what are some of the most effective ways that have worked on getting kids liking foods containing less sodium? Actually, I think there's been a lot of taste tests, and one of the many of salt substitutes are maybe not potassium chloride, because that may not be acceptable. But the other thing that that strikes me is that a lot of kids, you know, become a lot of spices. In fact, are very good for that as well. And are all the USDA commodities meeting those requirements now for lower sodium? They are working on that. And you can imagine that they're going to be, they're going to do their best, because obviously industry is making a big impact, and that's where a lot of the USDA foods are working with industry to get lower sodium products. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and I will hand it over to Liz, and Liz will introduce the final speaker.
Okay, I think now we're going to move on to Bridget Matthews, and she's going to tell us about what they do in her district for heart healthy foods. Bridget?
Good afternoon. My name is Bridget Matthews. I'm the School Nutrition Director for Elbert County Schools in Georgia. This is home for me. This is the school that I graduated, the school system that I graduated from. I'm completing my 15th year as the School Nutrition Director here. But I come from a clinical background. I was am a registered and licensed dietitian, but I came from the clinical background and worked in the hospital for many years. And I was able to bring some of those skills with me over to school nutrition, and just want to share a little bit about what we're doing here with Elbert County Schools. We're a pretty small district. We only have 5 schools. We are about 83% free and reduced. We are CEP in 4 of our schools. So just so you understand a little bit of my background, we are a small district, and so there may be some things that I'm doing that you may or may not be able to do in your district. We're located in rural northeast Georgia. Our participation, we serve about, we have 3,000 students. We serve about 2,000 of them every day for breakfast. We do breakfast in the classroom for pre-K through 8th grade, all the way from our pre-K students through our middle school. And we serve about 2,000 of them for breakfast. That's about a 65% breakfast participation. If you take my high school away, which is always a challenge, we're about 81% of our middle school and elementary school students eating breakfast. We, National School Lunch Program, we serve about 2,500 of our students every day. That's about an 82% lunch participation. Without the high school, again, it's about 91%. So just to look at it, our participation is pretty good. Sometimes you can meet low sodium requirements, but the kids aren't eating, but we're pretty proud of where we are. And I'm going to share with you a few of our tips as how we've been able to do that. I think that training is the key. I know that Cindy's talked a little bit about that. Others have talked a little bit about in their presentations. And training for us is key. I wanted my staff to understand the whys, because I do not ever want them to say, if a student comes through the serving line and says, hey, why doesn't my sandwich have pickles on it? Or why can't I have this? Or why isn't this? I don't ever want their answer to be because Bridget said so, or because USDA said so, or because I want them to understand the whys behind it. So I took one of our in-service trainings and decided we would spend the whole day with the concentration on sodium. So all of my staff's together. We do this training once a year. I decided to choose sodium as our topic. I walked around the entire day with a teaspoon in my hand, because 1 teaspoon of salt provides 2,300 milligrams of sodium, and that is your entire needs for the day. So all day long in my hand, every time I'd say something, this teaspoon was in front of them. That is all the sodium that they needed. I felt like it was very important for them to understand the science behind some of the decisions that were being made. Why are we reducing sodium for students? Why is that a big deal? But I also wanted to make it personal for my staff. So I felt like that if I could make it personal to them and why should they reduce sodium, then it becomes a big deal, and all of a sudden they can answer questions to students on the front line. I'm not on the front line every day, but my staff is, and they're the ones that are going to be interacting with students, and I wanted them to have great training behind that. So we discuss blood pressure, we discuss heart disease, we discuss all kind of things. But the biggest thing here for us in our district, we have lots and lots of high blood pressure, lots of it. We're a very small community. I've told you that. We only have about 19,000 people in our entire county, but we have 2 dialysis centers here, and there are many things that could go into that. But I wanted them to make them understand. I had them stand if you know someone with high blood pressure. Everybody in the room stood. I wanted them to stand if you know someone in this room who's on dialysis. I have them do that. Everybody here, it became personal. Why are we cutting salt? Why do we need sodium reduction in our menus? And this is why. And it made a huge impact on my staff, a huge impact on my staff. After I did the training for my staff, why is this important? My blood pressure doesn't need it. My kidneys don't need it. My heart doesn't need it. All of those things. My bones don't need it. We went through the science behind it, and it made a huge impact on my staff, because when kids come through the serving line and they say, how come my sandwich doesn't have pickles? Because you don't need those pickles. Did you know how much sodium is in pickles? They were able to engage the students in those same conversations about science. We also took at this training a typical, what we would think of as a nutritious menu. Many times we hear people say, I'm going to start eating healthier, and they'll begin to do things from restaurants that serve sandwiches, and that seems to be one of the most nutritious menus that we serve. And so what I did was I took nutrition labels for every item on that menu, everything from this ham sandwich with lettuce, tomato, pickles, baked potato chips, carrots with a little ranch dressing, fruit, and chocolate milk. And so because that meal was often considered as a healthier option, I wanted them to sit down and I wanted them to tally up the amount of the sodium content. And it came out to almost 2,000 milligrams of sodium, almost the entire maximum amount for the day in that one menu. And through that exercise, my staff was able to clearly see why we are making some of the changes that we're making. And we've made some decisions to do that. Now, after I did the training for the staff, I also do that same exact training for our students. I spend a lot of time in classrooms. I participate in professional learning teams with our faculty and our staff, and as they're brainstorming about their curriculum, we actually take that training to the students. We do the same thing. I'll walk around with that teaspoon in my hand the entire class. Just taught 2 blocks at our high school on Friday, and asked the students, told the students, empowered the students to make better decisions if they could understand. One of the things that we've done, so here in the Deep South, we love for breakfast, our students really love biscuits. And so I wanted to figure out a way, is there a way that I could provide a whole grain biscuit every day for breakfast and still meet sodium levels? And so one of the things that we've done, you'll see the picture here of my students. These we're also the Blue Devils, and so everything for us is the Blue Way, very similar to what Cindy does in her district. But this is my Blue Way team, and we use them kind of like a nutrition committee. And here they're taste testing biscuits. And very interestingly enough, we had our current biscuit plus two other options. Our current biscuit was the lowest in sodium of all of them. We baked them off, put them in front of the kids. Okay, which is the best? Never told them which was which, but they chose the original biscuit, very, very interestingly. And so our kids wanted that biscuit every day for breakfast. And the only way that we could make that work is if we began to look at the sodium of all the other things that we're serving for breakfast. And we began to notice that chocolate milk was an issue. Chocolate milk has about 45% more sodium than white milk, than the version of the white milk. And so there was no way that we could offer a biscuit every day for breakfast and offer chocolate milk. But if we switched and we did not offer chocolate milk for breakfast, but we offered all of the other options that we needed to meet the meal patterns, but just not chocolate, then we could meet the sodium requirements. But one of the things that we knew what was going to happen as we made these decisions over the summer is when the kids came in for breakfast, they're going to be asking my cashiers, they're going to be asking my folks on the serving line, hey, why don't we have chocolate milk? I wanted them to be able to answer that question. Hey, did you know that sodium is higher in chocolate milk than it is in white milk? Did you know that it's 45% more sodium? I wanted my staff to have those answers, and so we do that. So you'll see, biggest thing for us in school strategies is student opinions. One of the things that you have to be careful about is if you ask, you've got to be ready for the answer. Sometimes that takes a little bit of tough skin. When we started reducing sodium in our meals, we started way before the new pattern started, but we wanted student opinions, and we wanted to know what they thought about it. And so taste testing is the number one way that we do that. When we first reduced sodium, we heard that there was a black market in the cafeteria. Our school resource officer happened to call me one day, and he said, so Bridget, I need to tell you something. He said, so what's happening in the cafeteria that I'm not sure that you're aware of is it's almost like a black market. Like kids are bringing salt shakers from home. They're selling a shake of the salt for a quarter. And so we knew that we had some work to do. And so we began this campaign to educate not only our staff, but to educate our students as well. I will tell you that when I taught those 2 blocks on Friday, one of the first things I ask, and I do this in every class that I go into, is what do you think about school lunch? Tell me what your opinions are. What's your favorite? What's your least favorite? What do you want to see different? What are you eating at home that we aren't serving at school? All of those things. And I asked them what their complaints are. And last week, one of the complaints was about things, but it never ever was a top complaint for sodium. And so we feel like we're making big strides with our kids as we begin to talk to them about it. The other thing is that we want to remember is that the sodium is a weekly total. Those are not daily totals. I hear other folks sometimes as we've done team up across the country and we talk about sodium, I've heard people say, well, we can't serve hot dogs anymore because hot dogs are a really high in sodium entree. Well, I'll tell you, here in the Deep South, my kids love hot dogs. And so I wanted to figure out a way that I could still serve those hot dogs. And so what you do is you balance out. Remember, it's a weekly total. So you balance out what you're doing with maybe a higher sodium item like hot dogs, but you balance that out with lower sodium entrees the rest of the week so that you still can meet those weekly totals. Some other school strategies for us, just like Cindy, I know you touched on some farm to school stuff. Farm to school is really huge for us in Elbert. By switching and really focusing on locally grown, more so than anything produce, we've gone back to fresh local ingredients. You'll see here, this is a member of my high school FFA team, my high school FFA group, and he actually comes and helps us in the kitchen on our Harvest of the Month days. So one day of the month, we do what we call Harvest of the Month. We put it on our menu. Today in our schools for lunch happened to be our Harvest of the Month, and it was roasted root vegetables. So we took potatoes, fresh turnips, not the turnip salad, but the turnip root, and carrots, dice those up, mix it with a little bit of oil and some ranch dressing mix. No salt and pepper. There is some sodium in the ranch, but that's the only sodium that we added to that. We roasted those off. It's a huge deal in our school system. So by going back to fresh local ingredients, it helps us to control the amount of sodium rather than a manufacturer or producer of a product to control that. And so many times with our farm to school items, we're back to scratch cooking. We're starting from the beginning. So I had one of my staff members this morning, and she said, Miss Bridget, I'm not a big, I don't get out of my comfort zone when I eat, but I want to tell you these roasted root vegetables are delicious. So we're making strides with our students and our staff. Biggest thing is looking at recipes for us, is just paying careful attention to things. One of my staff members that's in charge of procurement for me here in Elbert, she was looking at nutrition labels, and she called me one day and she said, listen, I want to change how we do ranch dressing. We had been using a bottled ranch dressing. She said, I want to switch and I want to make ranch dressing from scratch. So we did that. Worked great. Used the recipe that is suggested on the ranch dressing mix. We were okay. We had cut our sodium. So at another point in time, she called me back and she said, so I'm looking at labels, and did you know that sour cream is much less in sodium than mayonnaise? And in fact, mayonnaise is 15 times the amount of sodium that there is in sour cream. She said, what if we take the amount of mayonnaise that we add in our salad dressing and we take half of that mayonnaise out and replace it with sour cream? And I said, well, Tina, let's try it. Let's go taste test with our Blue Way kids. So we taste tested with our Blue Way kids. We also put it out at lunch. We put it out with faculty and staff. We put it out with lots of different people. Nobody could taste the difference in our ranch dressing. And so looking at individual ingredients and how can you make those recipes a little bit different, and how can you improve sodium one ingredient at a time will help you to reduce your overall sodium intake. The last thing I have is the flavor station. We currently are not doing that, but I've heard lots of other presenters talk about that today. It is something that we are actively looking at as we speak. We're going to be meeting with, we've got a group at our middle school that are going to be meeting with us next week to look at these flavor stations and to figure out how we can make those work. We're going to add some different spices and things into it, and to see if we can make that work in schools. So I want to open it up for questions, but the last thing I want to say is that I think that as we've changed meal patterns, we've really just got to give it time. We have got to change eating habits of students over time. My nephew is a junior in high school, and he was eating dinner with us one night, and my children were at the table, and at the time my son was in kindergarten, and Walker said to me, he said, Bridget, my friends and I, the meal patterns aren't real popular with us. We're just not used to eating that way. We're used to eating the old way, and the meal patterns just aren't popular. He said, but Harrison, my kindergartner, he said, but Harrison and his friends, when they get to be my age in high school, it's just going to be okay. It's just going to be okay with him. They're going to be great. They're going to love it. And I think he hit the nail on the head. And I think he understood what the rest of us just need to understand is that we are changing eating habits over time. And every step of the way, as we begin to cut sodium, our students get used to it. And they get used to this is the way we should eat. Salt is an acquired taste. And so I think over time, if we just hold where we are, I think that our students are going to get used to it, and they're going to change their eating habits over time. So at this time, I'd like to open it up for questions, just to see if anybody has any questions for me. There's a couple of questions here about getting our recipe for ranch dressing. I'll be glad to share that with you. The next screen that I have actually is my contact information. So if you guys would just send me an email, I'll be glad to share that information with you. Farm to school, the question is farm to school hard to get into as far as cost? For us, it has not been. We have great produce vendors here that work with us. It takes a lot of work, but it is well worth it. We have made relationships with farmers close here in Elberton that we're able to partner up with and to get those products, and you can do some negotiations with them, and especially if for us, like our harvest of the month today, we use turnips from Mountain Earth Farms out of Clarksville, Georgia. And so on my menu that goes home with every student and sits on refrigerators in all of our students' homes, at the bottom of the menu, it says Harvest of the Month. It shows that harvest of the month for this month was roasted root vegetables, and these vegetables are coming from Mountain Earth Farms in Clarksville. So many times you can negotiate a little bit with those farmers about that, especially if they know that they're going to receive some advertising. And what we do is we make sure that we put that out there. If there's no more questions at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Liz.
Thank you, Bridget. And I'd also like to thank our other panelists for sharing with us today. But before we conclude, I have just a few announcements. Trying to get my screen right, sorry. All right, here are my announcements. Just a reminder again that today's webinar has been recorded and can be viewed on the Team Up for School Nutrition Success website at www.theicn.org/teamup. State of California is having a Team Up workshop next month, March 14th through the 15th. State snapshots that provide a summary of Team Up events happening across the country are available on the site. And I'd like to quickly mention a few new things that are happening at ICN. We are planning to launch our new website this spring for a fresh new look, so be aware that that's coming. Also, be on the lookout for a relaunching of the Team Up concept under a new name in the very near future. This concludes our Team Up Thursdays webinar, and remember to check out the School Nutrition Team Up website at ICN. Thanks again for participating, and have a great day.